information center over here.
I do.
Okay, O-line.
Don't you?
Oh, there is? Okay. All right. We got Wi-Fi on the tape.
You want to call us
Do we
to
have
order?
Ricky? Is Ricky on?
Is Ricky going to join us? Okay. Mr. McCall's on the call. There he is.
Greetings.
John McCall, Dr. McCall.
Hello. Nice to see you.
Does he see
I'm
us?
here. Good to see all of you.
Smile, John, smile.
I want eye contact.
All right, we will call the Board of Regents meeting to order, and I think we should acknowledge our host, Dr. Blanchard. Beautiful campus at U of H downtown. Thank you. I'm sure our chairman will give you all kinds of accolades as the day goes on. So, but anyway, let's start the meeting. Beth Madison, chair of our endowment committee.
Welcome. Good morning, everyone. As chair of Endowment Management Committee of the University of Houston System Board of Regents, I would now like to call this committee meeting to order. For those of you who will be joining remotely today, as a reminder, please speak clearly so your presentations and remarks are recorded accurately. There are 6 items listed on your agenda today, 2 action items for the committee's consideration, 3 action items for the committee's and the board's consideration, and 1 information item. After each item has been presented, I will ask the committee if there are any questions and call for a vote. If circumstances are warranted, I will call for a vote to place any items on the board's consent docket agenda for final board approval. We have 2 representatives from our investment firm, NEPC, yeah. Mr. Sam Pollock, partner, Mr. Ryan Walters, senior consultant, who are attending our meeting today. Welcome. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
I'd like to now introduce our first item requiring committee approval. The minutes from the Endowment Management Committee held on November the 30th, 2022. Does anyone have any corrections to these minutes? Do I hear a motion to approve these minutes as?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The minutes from the November 30th, 2022 Endowment Management Committee meetings are hereby approved. The first agenda item to be presented today is item C, a report from NEPC regarding the University of Houston System endowment and non-endowed portfolios. Mr. Raymond Bartlett, Senior Vice Chancellor for Administration and Finance, will you please introduce this item?
Yes, and good morning. I'd like to turn it over to Mr. Pollock to talk about our endowed and non-endowed portfolio in terms of performance, asset allocation, and so forth.
Thank you, Mr. Bartlett. Good morning, everyone. Nice to be with you, and exciting to have a different venue this time as well, and participate in and enjoy kind of firsthand what the fruits of our labor are supporting. It's really terrific. I'd like to share a couple of quick comments to set the stage, and then I will turn the microphone over to my colleague, Mr. Walter, here to speak specifically about the UH investments. Obviously, we have experienced a very turbulent market and geopolitical environment these last many months, and we're very excited, frankly, about the fruits of our partnership in its early days. The UH portfolio, the endowment and non-endowed, have continued to do really well on a absolute and or relative basis. We are all standing on shoulders of those who've come before us in this regard, and that's been our thesis, is really to build on an excellent foundation that was in place before our arrival and contribute sort of to the next generation here, recognizing the intergenerational aspect of our labors. When it comes to the specific environment, I think one of the thoughts that we wanted to share is that in some regards we're trying to thread a needle again. The range of possible outcomes as we see it at this point in time is enormously wide. Certainly there's a lot of talk about the possibility of recession in the next year, but there are also positive outcomes as well that could be quite significant. Lest that sound like double talk, I want to be very clear, nobody's going to be unhappy with a positive surprise. So what we really want to do is ensure that UH can participate in that positive, should it come to pass, and also protect against the downside. And that's been really a thesis that has underpinned our counsel to this group over the last year and a half. Mr. Walter here will comment on some of the specific elements, and surely as you peruse the materials, a number of the changes that we've collectively made over that last year have already borne fruit for the university, and that's not always going to be the case, but we are very excited about that. And then beyond that, as we go forward, some of the elements that we are going to be talking about later today with respect to specific actions that we are recommending, it's all with this in mind. How can we ensure that the university participates and captures some of the upside potential that is afforded by your investments, but ensure that you're not taking all the same risk and therefore exposed to unnecessary downside? We'll be more specific about what that means in our comments to follow. Beyond that, I think the agenda is pretty straightforward. We are, as I said, building on a strong foundation, and that includes continued investment and commitment with managers that have served the university well, and we'll come to that. And of course, we welcome along the way any questions you may have. With that, Mr. Walter, I'll turn it to you for some macro thoughts on the environment and on the university's portfolio specifically.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Pollack. So just to provide a brief market backdrop, there is a slide on slide 3 of our slide deck here, which I think someone's controlling back there. Thank you. So there's some key themes in 2023 here. Again, 2022 was, I guess I'll say, an interesting year, albeit negative. Some key themes for 2023 as we look forward are presented on this page. I'll speak to a few of them. What we're watching closely is possibilities of a stagflationary environment. What is stagflation for those that are unaware? Relatively elevated inflation, as well as subdued growth, but also higher unemployment. We think that is the risk in this landscape, although we have not seen unemployment start to tick up, and we saw that even this morning with initial jobless claims being less than expected. So the recession outlook, you've heard some buzzwords out there of a soft landing or a hard landing or potentially no landing at all, is the new phrase that's been going around. And then also the effect of China's reopening. Is it going to be inflationary because of more demand entering the market is yet to be seen. So I think what we're looking at as far as the way forward, I think there's 3 things for the economy. One is jobs, the second one is jobs, and the third one is jobs, to determine exactly where this economy will be headed. So those are some of the themes that we're watching closely. On the next slide, summing up 2022, to put a bow on 2022, although it was a gift that we wish we did not receive, all asset classes here were negative for 2022. Equities are on the left, and as you go across left to right, fixed income indices as well. And then the one shining star on the very far right, commodity index, was positive for 2022. So I'll go ahead and jump into performance unless there's any comments or questions on our thoughts and the market environment that we find ourselves in today. Okay. On page 9, a few more slides in front, thank you. You'll see at the very top right our asset allocation compared to policy targets. So what's explicitly written in the policy. You'll see a little bit underweight to equities at the top, that's public equities. And then private markets at the bottom of that little section is for the most part equities as well, so private equities. So we do look at those in tandem. We are underweight public and overweight privates. And then you'll see right below that when we get into performance, and I should put some context around performance. Really to sum it up in 2022, if we were invested in the S&P 500, we were down over 18% for 2022. If we were invested in the U.S. fixed income market, we were down anywhere from 13 to 15, upwards of 16%. So for 2022, the calendar year, the UH portfolio was down just a little bit more than 10%. So not happy about negative returns, but compared to public markets in this country, we're way ahead of the game there. So you will see the policy benchmark. That is benchmarked to those policy targets in that top right section. and then we'll get into other benchmarks on the subsequent pages. So at the very right, I want to take a brief couple seconds just to mention liquidity. When markets are challenged, liquidity becomes more to the forefront. So I think you should be rest assured that almost half of this portfolio in the endowment could be liquidated and converted to cash the next day. And almost 2/3 of the portfolio could be converted to cash within a quarter. That remaining 1/3 are those private market investments that are relatively illiquid. So on the next page, on page 10, you'll see the same performance up at the top, quarterly and trailing year periods there. And we look at a dynamic benchmark there. What does that mean? If we took your actual allocation, your current allocation, and indexed it all, what that return would be from a passive index perspective. So you'll see for the 3 months ended December 31st, up 4.7%. If the whole portfolio was indexed, it would have been up 4.3. So what does that mean? The managers that we have selected have added value over the index for the 3-month period ended December 31st. As you go left to right over long periods of time, that is also the case as well. Peer group data occurs here on page 11, which I know we're all interested in, and what are our peers doing? On the left 2/3 of this page, and I should remind everybody, as I always do, that this is a quarter lagged. So we're looking at 9/30 data here, and that is primarily because of private markets. Those valuations are delayed a quarter. So 9/30 data, the peer group is colleges and universities with assets between $750 million and $2 billion. You'll see there at the very top. The left 2/3 of this page is asset allocation benchmarking, so how are other colleges and universities invested? And about that third of a page on the right is actual performance. So you will see here that we are slightly overweight equities, both U.S. public as well as private equity, and then a tad overweight to real assets, inflation-sensitive assets, and also bonds, as you'll see at the bottom. So longer term, intermediate term, better than peers for the 1, 3, and the 5. Still a little bit shy of the 10-year there, but definitely trending in the right direction. Couple topics, or a couple aspects of performance detail. I know there's a lot of information on pages 13 through 15, but you can take a look at any individual investment manager. I will say that some of the changes that we've made have paid off, and we say that with humility because we know that's not always the case, but some tactical moves in 2022 did pay off. One of them about halfway down that page on page 13, I'm sorry, just backing up a moment, is moving more towards value strategies as opposed to growth strategies in the U.S. equity market, and that's evidenced by the recent addition of the Northern Trust Russell 1000 Value Fund. Made it a 5% position in October, already up over 12%. We do think that trend is likely to continue. We continue to have that lean in our portfolios, at least having equal weight growth and value, if not a little more value in our client portfolios. And then one other topic before I turn it back, core fixed income on page 14. As I mentioned, bond market in the U.S. for 2022 down really anywhere from about 13% to 16%. UH's fixed income managers down 8% for the calendar period. So again, only capturing about 50% of that downside, which obviously we cannot get excited about negative returns, but if you can provide some downside protection, we're satisfied with that. So happy to answer any questions on the portfolio or performance before I turn it back.
And of course, we are going to share some comments in a moment about the non-endowed assets as well. There will come a time, obviously, when it makes sense to change positioning with respect to fixed income. I've had a fairly defensive posture, which has served the university very well in this past year as rates have risen. At some point, that environment will change. When exactly remains to be seen. But again, it's our thesis and our thinking and counsel to you is guided by an understanding of what role fixed income plays in the endowment portfolio specifically. It's not there to generate the best returns in your portfolio. You have other elements, private equity, public equity, and among others, that are there to drive growth. The fixed income is there for defense and liquidity primarily, and that's why we have approached it with that in mind. Mr. Walter, perhaps will cover some thoughts on the non-endowed pool.
Yep, sure. So if you'd have to jump ahead in the slides to page 26, I think is a good performance detail. Those are all the assets and the strategies that the non-endowed pool is in. You'll see the non-endowed assets at the top is just north of 900 million. And trailing performance at the top across that skinny gray line there, UHS non-endowed assets. 1 year was down negative 1.5%. These are very short-term bonds in nature. So obviously we've been able to cushion, the negative 13 to 16% that we've seen in the fixed income by being more cash-like. And I know Raymond and I and Sam were speaking before with money market rates getting us all excited at north of 4%, when, a year ago they were about 0. So cash is now an attractive asset, and, this serving as, a nice reserve for the university as well, starting to get compensated for those dollars. So I would say that this performance is going to continue to look better, and that is a function of current interest rates with the Federal Reserve rate, Fed funds rate, coming close to 5% and projected to go over that. Those will be directly related to short-term interest rates, for example, money market rates. So we keep it very, very conservative here. Cash-like instruments, AAA rated paper, or AAA to investment grade rated paper, but a lot of AAA there as well, and keeping it very short duration. So I would say anything in here is under about 3 years, with the exception of the Loomis sales at the very bottom. But that is a very small portion of the portfolio. So safe, conservative, liquid is the name of the game here. And again, we expect to see compensation as far as interest is concerned in this portfolio. So you'll see long-term performance at the top. Again, that's been a function of the ultra-low interest rate environment that we've been in for about 10 years or so. So happy to answer any questions here.
Just add to that very quickly that one, this is consistent with the investment policy for the non-endowed assets, and that's what governs this, and therefore our counsel in that regard. But also we've worked with this group to ensure that within that range, again, we're diversifying the risk so that it's not all heavily exposed to changes in interest rates and longer duration. And that's something you see in some of the changes that have been introduced. Relatively fewer changes in this portfolio than in the endowment, but collectively we're seeing the fruits of that labor over this period. And as the environment changes, we will continue to engage with this group with thoughts as they evolve.
I have a question.
With the landscape that is looking right now, where economy is very strong, is still the jobs are really very strong. I know housing market is expected to come down. That's at least prediction. But looking at the jobs, and the Fed so far has not been able to tame it, it's very likely that they would continue to increase interest rates in the next 6 months or so, which means we're probably going to enter a recession, which may last 2 years at the very minimum. And then we know how they overcorrect and then they drop. So my question to you is, looking at all of that, are you concerned about something, or are you suggesting anything we need to do for the endowed or the non-endowed side of it?
So, Chancellor, good morning, and thank you for the question. Absolutely, those are elements that we are concerned about. What we are, I think our message to this group would be that we're very comfortable with the current positioning of both the endowed and non-endowed portfolios with that set of risks in mind. Particularly the endowed or endowment portfolio exists with a long-term mandate in mind to support the university to grow over the long term. And so there's that balance between pursuit of growth and risk protection. And that's very much woven in to the fabric of the portfolio today. I think anybody who says they're not worried should have their heads examined. But at the same time, we recognize that adopting a purely defensive posture would be to the longer-term detriment of the university. So we do feel that the elements that are in the portfolio today have been very thoughtfully constructed to strike that right balance, and particularly some of the changes over the last year have been with that in mind, to ensure a diversification of risk for those possible eventualities. One thing I will highlight, we may recall not so long ago at the onset of the pandemic, the economy, I don't want to say collapsed, but faced some very hard times. Short-lived, but nonetheless very hard times. The markets did not respond in the same way. Markets kind of chugged along and in fact accelerated in terms of the adoption of technologies. We have participants in today's meeting online in a way that might not have been possible a short number of years ago. And so even the economic recession possibility doesn't necessarily indicate that the markets will follow suit. And so that's consistent with my earliest comments today. The range of possible outcomes from an investment standpoint we believe are very wide, and so we're trying to strike a measured note vis-a-vis the university's investments.
Just one more question. With the prolonged war in Ukraine and rising tensions with China, our investment in any foreign equities, or what is the overall thinking or philosophy from public endowments in the foreign equities?
I will address that from a purely investment standpoint rather than a moral one or ideological one, of course. Again, I think those are risks that we would all be well served to bear in mind. Vis-a-vis the endowment portfolio specifically, we have collectively dialed back a little bit of the emerging markets exposure, which had arguably some of the most direct tie-in to both China and trade with China, as well as the war in Ukraine. But nonetheless, some of these have also been strong performers. So relative to the market indices and the overall opportunity set, the university is relatively underexposed to some of these non-U.S. investments, and that's, I believe, in the materials as well. But again, as a refresher, relative to sort of the market weights, the present positioning of the portfolio is U.S. biased and relatively underweight to some of these non-U.S. equity investments in public markets.
Thank you. You know why I'm asking all this, so that a year from now, we shouldn't be sitting here and saying we could have done that, you know?
That's exactly right. And it's entirely possible that those will prove to be very compelling investments, certainly contrarian ones, but our eye is very much on the risk. And again, there's an asymmetry there. The downside risk is more material than the upside potential. So thank you for the question.
Question about interest rates have gone up. CDs are paying more than 4.6, 4.8, depending upon, and treasury bills are paying. So I know you recommend investments in every board meeting. So I was wondering if you can delay our investment by 3 months or 6 months and buy these CDs, rolling CDs, which will mature in 3 or 6 months for a period of next 3 to 6 months to see how market is doing, where it's going to go.
Regent Agrawal, I'm sorry, it was a little difficult to hear the question, but was it directionally about deferring fixed income investments to capture higher rates?
So every board meeting, you recommend some new investments. And I was wondering if in place of making some new investments, can we just buy some CDs or treasury bills which are paying more than 4.6, 4.8% on 3-month rolling cycle? So maybe in place of investing some money now, let's just get some CDs. And this is the extension of Dr. Khator's comment, and all of us are worried about what may be happening. So maybe just lock in 4.6 or 4.8% for 3 to 6 months and keep on rolling that every 3 months till we decide what we are going to do.
Thank you. Okay, I believe I understand the question at this point. What I would share in that regard is that the investments that we've been recommending, whether in public equity or private equity, are by and large not coming from a pool of cash that's sitting idle on the sidelines. A lot of the public equity investments or recommendations that we have made are matters of repositioning current holdings to better capture. So we are not collectively foregoing the potential for higher return from interest rates in order to pursue these investments. We are simply taking investments that the university already has in some of these arenas and repositioning them to what we believe to be more favorable opportunities. In terms of the fixed income specifically, which is admittedly a smaller part of the portfolio, that's something we've already done in positioning the fixed income holdings in such a way that they can participate in those ever-increasing interest rates over time without the deleterious impact of the rising rates on longer-dated fixed income. So by and large, the fixed income, while not in CDs for a variety of reasons, has been positioned for just that purpose.
All right, let's please keep that in mind going forward. Thank
Indeed. Thank you. I believe this concludes our comments on the performance of the UH portfolios. And again, we're quite pleased by our early fruits of our partnership here. So thank you for your engagement. Mr. Bartlett.
Regent Madison, that completes item C.
Thank you, Mr. Bartlett. This item was presented for information only and requires no action by the committee. The next item listed on the agenda today is item D. Approval is requested to delegate authority to the Chancellor to negotiate and execute contracts for the hiring of private investment managers for the University of Houston System Endowment Fund. Mr. Bartlett, will you introduce this item?
Yes, I'll turn it over to Mr. Pollack to discuss a recommendation or two recommendations for the committee's consideration related to a re-up to two private equity funds with whom we are current limited partner investments. So, Mr. Pollack?
Thank you, Mr. Bartlett. So I believe this is a fairly straightforward part of today's proceedings. These are two funds with whom the university enjoys a fairly long history. In the case of TrueBridge, this would be the 7th such investment on the part of the university dating back to 2010. And TrueBridge, as a reminder, is a fund of funds in the venture capital arena. They have a strong reputation, good access to underlying managers, and afford the university diversified exposure to venture capital, and specifically a mix of early stage technology and other compelling investments. You'll see the specific results on page 28 of their prior funds. The earliest one having distributed already 3 times the university's money and valued at 5 times the university's initial investment. And of course, the less mature, more recent vintages, hopefully building up to that lofty peak, but ultimately performing quite well, as you can see on a variety of different metrics. Again, on page 28, sorry, that would be a little bit further on, I believe, 32. Thank you so much. Perfect, thank you. With the internal rate of return calculations, really very compelling for funds across vintages and in different market and economic environments. So we continue to think that this is a valuable part of the equation. It's a way to manage risk as well, because it is a diversified portfolio, and funds that otherwise be quite difficult to access. So with that, we are recommending a $10 million commitment. You can see for a period of time, the university's commitments were relatively disproportionate to the size of the endowment, and what we have done in recent years is just ensure that this successful partnership continues, and have recommended sizing that's more in line with the size of the endowment portfolio today. So we're recommending, again, a $10 million commitment to TrueBridge Fund 7, which would be the same size as the Fund 6 commitment made a couple years earlier. The second investment, which would be a single direct fund investment, is Mercury Fund 5. Rather than a fund-to-fund, it's a single fund with a Houston tie and presence as well, and also very, very strong results. You can see a 2017 vintage Fund 4, in which the university is an investor, marked at 2.5 times. Now, of course, only a fraction of that has yet been distributed, so it is paper profit at this point, but also a very, very strong net IRR or return at 54%. That may come down over time, would not be a surprise, but the multiple is very strong. Again, the relative sizing here, we're recommending a $5 million commitment. Again, we think that's appropriate given the different risk profile of a more broadly diversified exposure versus a single, more laser-focused commitment to a individual fund. I think fairly straightforward, given the history that this group and the university has with these two managers and their very, very strong results. And with that, open it up for any questions. I guess this concludes our specific remarks and recommendation on this topic.
Yeah. Hey, Sam. Can you guys hear me?
Good morning.
Yeah, good morning. So on my end, I see these recommendations a little bit more on the technology and software side. Does this have to do any, or I guess just kind of behind the thesis, it's just because of what we're seeing in the current environment with kind of technology and AI compared to Google and, you know, everything that they're doing with ChatGPT. So just wondering if that's kind of the basis of some of these recommendations based on the technology aspect that we're doing, or does that have to, did that come in anywhere in this recommendation?
It's an interesting question. The technology clearly is a big driver of our economy. I don't want to answer with a platitude, but it's a big factor. It's also performed in public equity markets, sometimes exceptionally well, and sometimes, as we've seen, quite the opposite. What we're trying to do is ensure that there's enough exposure for the university in this dynamic part of the market, and capturing that exposure where it's most compelling. And in our thinking, venture capital, as compared to the public equity markets, affords a different exposure earlier in the life cycle, where there's potentially a more interesting risk-reward trade-off and expertise that can be brought to the table to really commercialize technologies rather than to further develop and strengthen a mature business. And so in some regards, we have actually moved to blunt the impact of technology concentration in the portfolio in public equities. My colleague, Mr. Walter, commented on the introduction of a large cap value index, and that's as likely to have financial services and energy companies and other things that are arguably a little less a part of the S&P 500 and other market indices than we've seen in recent years. But yes, we do believe that that's an important part of the equation here for your venture investing, and we believe these are two managers that have the acumen to capitalize on that.
Thank you.
Regent Madison, if there are no other questions, this completes item D.
Thank you. Are there any additional questions? May I hear a motion to approve this item as presented? Is there a second? All in favor? Opposed? This item is hereby approved by the committee. No further board action is required. The next item listed on your agenda today is item E. Approval is requested to delegate authority to the chancellor to negotiate and execute contracts for the hiring of 2 new domestic equity managers and for the partial redemption of 3 domestic equity funds for the University of Houston Endowment Fund. Mr. Bartlett, will you please present this item? Is this me? What's going on? Oh. Taking a lot of power with that.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you very much. NEPC will recommend to the committee two new investments, each $20 million, one in a U.S. small cap value equity fund and another in a small cap growth equity fund, both of which will be funded through redemptions from existing managers within the portfolio. So let me turn it over to Mr. Pollack for detail.
Mr. Bartlett, thank you. We'll begin on page 34, I believe, of the materials. You may be aware that the university has not had in its endowment portfolio dedicated exposure to U.S. small cap companies. In other words, smaller public companies in the United States. This has been a part of the equation through a larger all-cap index fund in your portfolio, but we believe there's a very straightforward and compelling opportunity to hire some managers, active managers, to build portfolios for the university in small cap, specifically with distinct and complementary approaches, as you'll see. We are recommending 2 managers, DePrince Race and Zolo, a small cap value manager, and Granahan focused small cap growth manager. In a number of important ways, these couldn't be more different. They both invest in U.S. small cap companies. DRZ, as DePrince Race and Zolo is sometimes referred to, targets companies that have exhibited strong financial discipline. They focus on cash flows, they focus on the balance sheet of these companies, and they use dividend yield as a hallmark of financial discipline. In other words, companies that have committed to returning capital to investors. Tends to be, again, not chasing the tech high flyers. It's a very different sort of approach. Their long-term results have been very compelling. They are based in Winter Park, Florida, sort of outside the very obvious and common investment bubbles, and they have been managing money successfully for investors for a very long time. We think that this approach would be very additive to the portfolio and, importantly, very complementary to the approach of the other manager we're recommending today on the following page, which is Granahan and their focused small cap growth strategy. In this case, Granahan has a focus on the other end of the spectrum, very high growth companies, small companies, but very, very high growth. The portfolio, to your earlier question, can often have a lot of technology exposure, but again, early in the life cycle of some of these companies, they're smaller companies and very dynamic. You can see the results very much speak for themselves. You're not simply paying a lot of money for an index provider, you're paying a competitive rate. In fact, one we think is quite attractive for the potential for outstanding performance and a real growth driver for the endowment portfolio. So again, it's a question of sizing, and we are recommending $20 million investment in each of these. They're quite complementary. Interestingly, I'll note that the one-year performance as of this date was underperformance for Granahan. It's very tempting to chase whatever has done really well in the last minute. But in this case, this is a manager we think very, very highly of, that has delivered results over an extended period. The one element I will highlight, it's important for this group and any investor at the onset to really understand what you're signing on for. The numbers speak for themselves, both to the positive and negative. We believe the long-term potential is very compelling. Significant volatility should be expected. This is a manager that will look very different than that index in some ways, hopefully will outperform quite meaningfully, but again, it's very helpful to understand at the onset that there will be material outperformance and occasionally underperformance, hopefully, relative to that index. And again, we think that that's very compelling for the university and for the endowment portfolio, but important to set that expectation at the onset for obvious reasons. And with that, I would open it up to questions and simply summarize that we think these individual managers are very strong, but importantly, they're very complementary to each other and very different and additive in our thinking to the endowment portfolio, which is otherwise missing exposure to this less trafficked part of the landscape.
I would also like to add that for those concerned with geopolitical events and challenges abroad, small cap is actually an excellent area to insulate from some of that because most smaller companies here in the U.S. have primarily domestic operations, different than your large cap companies that are frequently multinational and invested in China and other countries of the sort. So also part of our thinking there as well.
So Sam, the one-year hiccup on Granahan, that's just the volatility both ways that we might expect, nothing specific in that happened.
Right. Nothing specific. They obviously had some technology exposure and concentrated, but that was a large driver in the equation. Their process, in both cases, built on fundamental research. They've demonstrated an outstanding ability to deliver over the long period, and it's nothing that gives us any pause. We've not seen a change in personnel, approach, philosophy. It's I guess, yes, a short-term hiccup.
Jim Madison, if there are no other questions, this completes this item, item E.
Thank you. Are there any other questions?
Yeah, Regent Madison. With that investment, what % of the portfolio would that cover? Is it just like a small subset of our equity portfolio?
That's correct. So both are recommended at $20 million, or each at $20 million, and obviously as a percentage of the portfolio, that's approximately, well, 2 each.
2 each, yeah. Okay, thank you.
Any other
And
questions?
that's I think, a helpful question. One of the things we're always trying to calibrate is what's large enough that it actually moves the needle and is worth your time, to say nothing of the university's resources, but not so large that it's a disproportionate risk. So
Yeah.
that's our thinking. I should point out that the Granahan strategy is typically has been closed to new investment, and we negotiated access on your behalf, which we're excited about.
Thank you, Sam.
More questions? If not, may I hear a motion to approve this item as presented?
So moved.
Second? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? This item is hereby approved by the committee. No further board action is required. The next item listed on your agenda today is item F. Approval is requested for the FY 2023 University Advancement Endowment Assessment Rate. Tongue twister there. Mr. Bartlett, will you please introduce this item?
Yes, thank you very much. We are coming before the committee today with a request to at least reduce the assessment rate for fiscal year '23 to 1.1%. However, we would like the flexibility to reduce it to 1% if, depending on how things go in terms of the budget as we move into fiscal year '24. The public median for this assessment fee is 1%, and over the last many years, it has been on a downward trajectory, and we have been certainly following in that footstep. And given where the median is today, we would like to get there a little sooner than later. But depending on, again, our budget and resources available, we would like at least the flexibility to go to 1% if possible, but at a minimum 1.1 for now.
Is there any discussion on this item? I know it's important to our donors. Thank you for bringing that forward. Are there any questions? If not, may I hear a motion for approval?
So moved.
Any second? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The item is hereby approved, and good luck progressing as fast as you can on that. Thank you. For all the reasons. All the good reasons. All right. Next item on the agenda today is item G. Approval is requested to modify the U of H System Endowment Fund Statement of Investment Objectives and Policies. Mr. Bartlett, will you please introduce this item?
Yes, there are two recommended changes to the endowment policy. The first one, bit of a housekeeping item. As we just discussed, the assessment rate embedded in our policy is our total spend calculation, which takes into consideration our payout rate plus the assessment rate. And so as we reduce that assessment rate, we need to adjust our total spend in our policy. And so we'll be making that change to at least 5.1%, perhaps down to 5% total.
I was hoping it came more out of growth in funds and therefore a lower percent rather than a reduction in expense. So do your best on that, too.
Great, thank you. The second is a request to increase on the private equity portfolio, increase the policy, the upper limit on the policy range. We are not recommending a change to the long-term target. We're just seeking a small increase on the upper band of the policy range for private equity to go from 27% to 32%. Again, I want to emphasize this is not changing the long-term target. This is just the upper band. The thinking behind this is, as NEPC has just discussed, with the volatility in the market and the fact that private equity is mark to market on a quarter lag, we could find ourselves in a situation with a downdraft in the market that pushes private equity up pretty above its upper band, and we just don't want to be having to make administrative decisions quarter by quarter by quarter. So having a little bit more headroom on that upper band, I think makes sense.
As long as you stay in range.
And those are the two recommended changes. And that completes this item, Regent Madison.
Does this need approval?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
Approval.
Wait.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? This item is hereby approved. Following the approval of our action items, I would like now to call for a vote to place the following three action items unanimously approved by the committee on the board's consent docket agenda for final board approval as follows.
I'm sorry, excuse me, I think we have one more item. It would be item H, item H.
Thank you. It's here. I missed it. The next item on the agenda is item H, annual review and approval of the U of H system policy for non-endowed funds. Mr. Bartlett, will you please introduce this item?
Yes, ma'am. In accordance with policy and best practice, we review our policies at least annually. We have performed a review of our non-endowed investment policy and have no recommended changes to the committee during this review period. Thank you.
Questions? Hear a motion?
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? This item is hereby approved. Now, I'd like to call a vote to place the following three action items unanimously approved by the committee for the board's consent docket agenda for final board approval as follows. Approval is requested for the fiscal year 2023 University Advancement Endowment Assessment Rate. Approval is requested to modify the U of H System Endowment Fund Statement of Investment Objectives and Policies. Annual review of and approval of the U of H System Investment Policy for non-endowment funds. May I hear a motion to place all three of these action items on the board's consent docket agenda?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? These three action items unanimously approved by the committee will be placed on the board's consent docket agenda for final approval at the Board of Regents meetings held later today, February the 23rd, 2023. I would now like to move to Section 2 listed on your agenda, the executive session. Should be noted that an executive session will not be held today. Does anyone have any other questions for this committee? If not, there being no further business to come before the committee, this meeting is hereby adjourned, and thank you again.
Thank you, Regent Madison. Why don't we go ahead and move to our Audit and Compliance Committee meeting? You guys are in charge of the stock market, so go to work.
You are rocking the boat.
Thank you.
Thanks, Sam. Thanks, Ryan.
Again, Ryan, thanks. Here we go. Bring your own nameplates. I like that. Welcome, Phil and Susan. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the meeting. As chair of the committee, I would like to call to order the Audit and Compliance Committee meeting of the University of Houston Systems Board of Regents. We have 7 agenda items that will be presented before the committee today. 1 action requires committee and board approval, and 6 items will be presented for information only. I would like to introduce the first item requiring committee approval, and that is the minutes from the Audit and Compliance meetings on November 30th of 2022. Any corrections to the meeting? If not, I will take a motion to approve. Second? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so approved. The first item listed on the agenda today for presentation is item C, a report of the University of Houston System Institutional Compliance Hotline Report for the 3 months ended January 31st of 2023, and training statistics for fiscal year 2023. Ms. Susan Coach, System-Wide Compliance Officer, will you please give your report?
Yes, thank you. Good morning. The first report I'm presenting today is the Institutional Compliance Report, which details the hotline reports received during the 3-month period ending January 31st. It also addresses the statistics for mandatory employee compliance training for fiscal year 2023, which we share with you annually. So on this first slide, it shows a breakdown of the fraud and noncompliance hotline reports received for each institution during the months of November and December 22 and January 23. On the following slide, the primary issue associated with each hotline report across all system universities is detailed. As you can see, the primary issues identified in the hotline reports during this 3-month period covered a broad range of areas. The categories receiving the most hotline reports related to abuse of power and compliance violations. There were 36 hotline reports in total, with 31 received for U of H, 4 received for UH Downtown, 1 received for UH Clear Lake, and 0 received for UH Victoria during this period. This represented a decrease in the number of reports received during the previous period, which was 50 last quarter. And on the following several slides, it details the issues reported for each of the universities. And we get to the last page of the report. This one, it contains the training statistics for mandatory compliance training by employees system-wide for fiscal year 2023, and as compared to the metrics for fiscal year 22. This concludes my report. Are there any questions?
Any questions for Susan? Susan, thank you for your presentation, and this item was presented for information only, and no further committee action is required. The next item listed today is item D, a report on university system fraud and noncompliance reports, summary report, and benchmarking for fiscal year 2022. We want to see those benchmarking. So, Ms. Susan Coach, please give us your report.
Yes, thank you. This report is a summary report of the fraud and noncompliance hotline reports received in fiscal year 2022, now that we have a complete picture. And if you go to the first slide, it shows the issues reported by type for the hotline reports received during the entire fiscal year. You will note that there are 13 separate types of issues reported. On the next slide, we identify the top 3 reported hotline issues for the past 3 fiscal years to give you some of an idea of the transition. Next, after the fiscal year 2022 hotline reports were closed, we evaluated the resolution of each report. Each closed report was examined to identify which of the following category best described the resolution of the report, whether there was no policy violation alleged, whether insufficient information was received, whether the report was investigated and the results were indeterminate, unsubstantiated, or substantiated, whether the hotline report related to a scam email from an external third party, or whether the report referred to the Equal Opportunity Services Office and a formal complaint was filed with EOS and tracked by that office. This slide shows that in fiscal year 22, of all the hotline reports received, approximately 15% were substantiated or partially unsubstantiated, while the majority of reports received involved issues that did not allege a policy violation. And then on this slide, we have broken down the hotline reports by type of reporter and whether the reporter was a student, employee, former employee, or a community member, which could refer to anyone that didn't fit into a previous category, such as a vendor, contractor, neighbor, or other. This slide provides details for the system as well as for each of our universities. Of the hotline reports received in fiscal year 22 for the system, roughly 50% were submitted by employees and 25% were submitted by students, with the remainder submitted by either former employees or community members. Next, this final slide presents some information to you regarding our hotline reports that we had not previously provided. As you're aware, each quarter we provide the committee with the raw number of reports received in each period. I thought it would be enlightening to put the number of reports we receive in perspective compared to other organizations. The compliance software company Navex collects this information annually from 13,000 organizations and derives an industry-wide metric. The orange horizontal line on this chart, titled Industry, represents the median number of hotline reports per 100 employees compiled by Navex. As you can see, the industry metric for 2022 across all industry types is 1.5 reports per 100 employees. We've asked other Texas state universities for information to calculate a similar metric and received it from UT Austin, UT San Antonio, and Texas Tech, which are represented on the chart by the other horizontal lines. As you can see, the number of hotline reports received per 100 employees ranges from 0.73 to 3.67 for benchmarking purposes. System-wide, we received 2.55 hotline reports per 100 employees, which falls within this range. From a compliance perspective, the more hotline reports an organization receives, the better it allows management to address problems that are difficult to root out with traditional monitoring. And that concludes my report. Are there any questions?
Any questions for Susan? Thank you, Susan. And that is a report we'll probably see from time to time, correct? As
Yes.
that benchmarking information gets broader. Okay. This was presented for information only. Next on our agenda is item E, a report of the University of Houston Systems Regents policies on internal audit, institutional compliance, and identity theft prevention. Mr. Hurd, would you please present this report?
Thank you, Regent Moore. So this is an annual requirement to review this document. I am recommending one small change this year. I draw your attention to the bottom of page 24 of your board material. The statement that I'm recommending changes to says the Department of Internal Auditing will investigate reports of suspected defalcation. I am recommending that we change that word to fraud.
Is that, I mean, like, we're gonna just dumb it down a little bit.
So, well, defalcation means an individual act of embezzlement, whereas fraud, at least according to Oxford, means wrongful or criminal deception intended to result in financial or personal gain.
Does
there-
this offend Donna in any way that we're going to take this big word out of it that's?
I don't
probably
think
some
so.
Lawyer.
I discussed this with the counselor, and she seemed on board, and I gave her a couple of reasons for this. I have a lot of certified fraud examiners. I don't have a single certified defalcation auditor.
I'm just impressed you can say the word. I want to see if Regent Brooks can say that word.
I tell you.
And I'm not going to even try.
Well, I also, personally, any audit or any policy talking about audit, I don't want any word that starts with def and ends with cation in it. So I think we should just,
Good old fraud, right?
go with fraud.
I
Okay,
think this is unanimously approved.
okay. So there is a motion to approve. Do I have a second? All in favor? Okay, thank you. The next on the agenda will be item F, a report on the University of Houston Systems External Audit Reports. Mr. Hurd?
Thank you. These are externally conducted audits. The first one is the University of Houston Athletics Department. This audit begins on page 30. The overview of this audit, which was conducted by James Moore and Company, will be
No
presented.
relation?
No, no relation. Will be presented by Katie Davis, CPA, and Shane Metzler, CPA. They are presenting remotely today, so I direct your attention to the screen.
Good morning, Regents. We appreciate this opportunity to present the financial report and NCAA agreed upon procedures for Houston Athletics for fiscal year 2022. Wanted to start out by saying there were no findings, concerns, or difficulties in performing our work. The teams within the Athletics Business Office and Campus Financial Reporting do a great job getting us what we need to make sure the engagement goes smoothly. The purpose of this engagement is there are multiple purposes. So first, the agreed upon procedures is less in scope than an audit, but it specifies procedures that are to be performed by an independent accountant in accordance with NCAA bylaws. This report is to inform presidents and chancellors of the NCAA member institutions about their athletic program revenues, expenses, and compliance within these bylaws related to financial reporting. And the financial reporting is intended to be applied in a consistent format, or they call it apples to apples, across all member institutions. Additionally, the financial reporting process and the procedures that we perform have a direct linkage to the revenue distribution that the university's athletic department receives from the NCAA for grants and aid. I would point you to Exhibit 1 or page 18 of our report, which would show the breakdown of revenues and expenses that are categorized in the NCAA bylaw categories. And as you look at that, I want you to be aware that their financial reporting framework is not under U.S. generally accepted accounting principles and is not a complete picture of the finances of the athletic department. Given that athletics is in the public spotlight, I would encourage you, if you see anything in the media or see anything that feels unusual to you, to engage with the athletics leadership to better understand the athletic department's financial position. This concludes my report, and are there any questions?
Any questions? Okay, thanks. Phil,
All right.
continue.
The next one is the UHS Endowment Fund. This audit begins on page 52 of your board material. This audit, which was conducted by Forvis, will be presented by Mr. Brian Kruger, CPA.
Good morning, Regents, Chancellor. Good to see you all again. Happy to be with you for another year. We certainly appreciate our long relationship with the university and happy to be able to continue that relationship. As Phil mentioned, we did have a name change to our firm since the last time we saw you. We completed a merger with a like-sized, like-minded firm from East Coast primarily. and we're now called Forvis. So that's kind of our new going forward moniker. And you'll see that on the reports as well. So we have rendered our unmodified audit opinion on your financial statements, as is typical for the engagement audit. There are really no significant matters to discuss with the committee. We did not have any posted adjustments. There is one past adjustment that we discussed with you last year. One of the managers last year was a little tardy providing fair value information on 2 or 3 of the funds. So it was not recorded last year. Therefore, this year, it's sort of basically a reversing effect of recording that activity in fiscal 23 instead of fiscal 22. It was deemed to be immaterial by management, and we certainly concurred with that as not necessary to record that entry. Lastly, just would like to give thanks to Louis and Dan and his team for their help. I also wanted to point out I've got David Waters with us today. David is the man who did most of the heavy lifting in the audit, so I wanted him to experience your committee meeting as well. And I'd be happy to take any questions if you guys have them for us.
Any questions? All right. Congratulations on the merger.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Thanks.
Okay. Next, Phil.
Next we have on the list is the University of Houston Cancer Prevention Research Institute of Texas grant, agreed upon procedures audit. To present that, also from Forvis is Shakita Rawls, also a CPA. Shakita?
Thank you, and good morning, everyone. I definitely echo Brian's comments. We want to thank you for the continued opportunity to perform the CPRIT agreed-upon procedures. Once again, the team did a remarkable job in providing us what we need. We did not experience any challenges during this agreed-upon procedures on the university's compliance with the requirements set forth in the Cancer Prevention and Research Institute of Texas, also known as CPRIT, Grant Policies and Procedure Guide. The university, they did agree to and acknowledge that the procedures that we performed are appropriate to meet the intended purpose of assessing the university's compliance with CPRIT, Grant Policies and Procedures and Guide for the year ended August 31st, 2022. So as a result of the procedures that we performed, we did not identify any exceptions, so we do not have any findings to report. And that concludes my report. Are there any questions?
Any questions? Thank you very much.
Okay,
Appreciate
thank you.
the great work.
Thank you.
Okay, these items were presented for information. Anything else, Phil, that's on these audits?
Not
Wanna
on
add?
these, no.
Okay. This item was presented for information only and no committee action required. The next item listed on your agenda today is item G, Report on University of Houston System's Annual Procurement Report, Fiscal Year 2022. Mr. Hurd, please introduce the item.
Thank you, Regent Moore. So each year, the Internal Audit Office prepares this report for the board. This year, there were no individual procurements that are worthy of board discussion, but I did want to give you a quick overview of what FY22 looked like. If you will please bring up page 106 from the board material, please. All right, so 2 things that we have to report on, which is consulting professional services greater than $250,000. We had roughly we had roughly 11 million that went out in FY22. The greatest bulk of that being 69% of it was architectural and engineering, consulting services then at 16%, and other professional services at 13%. So we reviewed each one of the contracts associated with that, and no issues with them. And if you would please turn to page 107, which should be the very next page, you will see the breakdown of the other $322 million that went out in contracts over $1 million. You will see that certainly payments for construction was the largest at 40-something%. It's a little hard to read at this distance. But you will see the breakdown of what was spent there. Now, the rest of the pages within this audit show you the procedures that we used, as well as, oh, thank you. Well, we were going up, and we're down. And now we're back up. Okay. So 46%, in other words, 150 million went to architectural and engineering. Your smallest was 82 million, which was all other. Or, excuse me, 2 million, which was all other. And let's see. So the short of it is that's your breakdown. The next several pages outline each individual contract. Now, my office goes through all contracts over $1 million. This is done at the board's request, and so you're welcome to look through those. But each one was individually reviewed by my auditor, or by an auditor in my office for compliance with the expected proper procedures. There's been some discussion as to exactly why we do this. I had to actually go to Counselor Cornell, who kind of gave me the backstory on why we do this, which dated back, I guess, to a contract several years before I arrived, dealing with concessions at the new stadium. One of the things that I would like to just let the board know is that one of the things that I have been doing since I've been here is looking for chances to automate things. Right now, these particular procedures are ripe for what is called robotic process automation, to review this using artificial intelligence. We are currently looking at that. Once I have a solid forward motion, I'll come to the board with an example of what that would look like and see if you're willing to accept that, which would allow us to do this with no audit hours and allow a computer to make sure that procedures have been followed. So that's all I have on that.
And those systems are pretty robust in terms of their proven accuracy and
For things like this, yeah, they broke the code. This is not a kind of a, you know, is everyone different type thing. It's, are these documents here? Are the right words, the right phrases, the right systems there? And I do believe that we can make this work.
And this would free your team up to spend more time on things that are bigger, broader challenges. So.
Exactly. While this is important, it is not necessarily something I want to continue to spend audit hours if I can get a computer to do this and simply give us the anomalies to look at. That'll drop our hours from, we spend several hundred hours a year doing this, down to a few hours. And that'll give me basically the extent of a half full-time employee to use on other things.
All right. Any questions? All right, this item was presented for information only. No committee action is required until Mr. Hurd comes back with a recommendation. Next on our agenda is item H, report on University of Houston Systems and U of H Systems financial statements, certifications for fiscal year 2022. Phil, please present the report.
So it is a requirement to present these to the board. They are essentially signed by the leadership of each institution. I check it over to make sure the leadership of each institution actually signed it. They have, and so we present them to you for your review.
Okay, any questions? All right, this item was presented for information only and no action is required by the committee. The last item on your agenda today is item I, report on University of Houston Systems internal audit reports. Mr. Hurd, please introduce the items.
All right, so I would direct you to page 130. This is a snapshot of the quarterly internal audit activity. As you will see, we have a number of audits that are ongoing, a number that have been completed. Particularly, I want to draw your attention to the green section that says audits in progress, about 3/4 of the way down. You will see procurement card management at each of the institutions. We've spent a lot of time on this, and in our May board meeting, I am going to give you what is the first of our data analytics strategy. Now, Regent Moore has had a preview of this, and he saw it after we had done the analytics, but before we had done the review of all the things that we found. We are completing that review, and so that meeting will be a little longer. And I just wanted to let you know that, because there will be about 30 minutes set aside at our next one to display what it is so you can understand what we've done. But roughly that covers approximately $780 million worth of spend across all 4 institutions for the last several years. So it's not a small audit, and it's literally millions of transactions. So it should be a very good.
And thousands of people that actually make those transactions.
Yes.
And, yeah, I had the opportunity to see, and Donna did as well, some of the work they're doing with the analytics side of it. I think their team is pretty excited about it too, which is good to see. And I think it's a very efficient way to approach something that has this much volume.
Well, we're trying to do that with all of the things that have that much volume, that many transactions. The days, I forget which region it was. I'm sorry, I was sitting in the back, but somebody mentioned ChatGPT and artificial intelligence. And one of the things that we are trying to do within my office is use those tools to identify fingerprints of not necessarily fraud, but things that aren't wrong, not following policies, and use those to automate the very tedious tasks that humans do now. And in auditing, we have a number of very tedious tasks that humans do now that we believe we can get the machines to do. And this represents a dramatic change from, well, at least the audit mentality when I got here to where we are now. So I just wanted to bring that up because I know as you look at it, you're kind of wondering, well, that's not really a lot. Well, it isn't so much the volume of reports as what you're going to see in the volume of transactions. And we're finally ready to show that. And I'm kind of bursting at the seams. So I just wanted you to know, bring popcorn next time, and we'll be good.
It should be some interesting things that you'll see, yes.
It is.
Do we have enough manpower to do this audit of this huge transaction, thousands and millions of transactions? Do you have enough
That's why he's
manpower?
going
So-
to analytics.
We have been doing a skills upgrade in my office, and I've got some folks that have really shown their merit. A couple of them actually are here today. Brandy, Kim,
18.
Connie, are you hiding over there? So these 3 have been, stand up, Kim. Don't hide down there. These 3 have been instrumental in this. And by that, I mean, it's rare that you have employees that not only will they take the training that you're giving them, but they go out on their own, they spend their weekends, they spend their nights getting better to make sure that they can give an outstanding job. So right at this moment for what we're doing, yes, we're okay as we move forward. I think once we do this, you'll see a lot of departments realize they're going to have to adapt their skill sets to doing things in a more digitally enhanced data analytic method. And I say that because some of the things, we were able to pull out some very minute things that you would not be able to see, but have cost us tens of thousands of dollars along the way because they were spread out among so many different users. So pulling all of that together, and as we've had discussions, the number one thing that's come back, and you guys can sit down now, I just want to say thank you. But the number one thing that's come back is as we talked with departments, they've said, we've never looked at it like this. That's the number one comment. And so I think there's a lot of people awakening to there's new ways to do this. I have high hopes that the chancellor will grace us with her presence, or we'll come to her. Raymond has agreed to come over and see what we're doing. And once we put this out, I think, along with some of the things that Raymond is doing, and I don't mean to steal any of his thunder, but he's put together a department or an office within his area that's looking to enhance a lot of our processes. And one of the things I want to show them is what we're doing. I think every audit department that I've ever been a part of or ever dealt with always has the same thing. You have an infinite number of things that you could look at. You don't have enough people. The thing I try to keep in mind, and I'll echo a little bit of when I first started, was the University of Houston system does not exist to audit. That is something that is necessary to make efficient and effective operations. So I don't want to spend any more money on people than I have to, but I do want to have the right people. And if the need should arise that I need more people or different people, and I will bring that forward to the appropriate parties.
Thank you, sir.
I think it's also speaks for using the technology that's advanced. to do the work that it just makes their job a lot more efficient and a little more interesting too, doesn't it? Yeah. Okay. Phil, anything else on this?
None on this specific slide. There are two audit reports. One is the ERC, which had a few minor findings, nothing worthy of the board, and then the quarterly contracts over $1 million. And as I just discussed, we'll be looking to change the way that we do this each year. So hopefully, you'll see that, well, not hopefully, you will see exactly what we're doing at the next meeting. But that's all I have.
Okay, thank you, Phil. And this item was presented for information only, and no committee action is required. The last item on your agenda today is item I, report on University of Houston system. Wait a minute, I just did that, didn't I?
You just, yeah.
Pardon me.
I'll be happy to talk about it again, but I think we're good.
I got, it's me. You don't need to stand up again. Following the approval of our action item, I would like to call for a vote to place the following one action item unanimously approved by the committee of the board's consent docket agenda for final board approval as follows. Report on University of Houston System Board of Regents policies on internal audit, institutional compliance, and identity theft prevention. May I hear a motion to place this one action item on the board's consent docket agenda? Second? Okay. All in favor? Aye. The one action item unanimously approved by the committee will be placed on the board's consent docket agenda for final board approval at the Board of Regents meeting later today on February 23rd. I would like to move now to Section 2 listed on your agenda, the executive session. It should be noted that an executive session will not be held today. Does anyone else have any further questions? Okay. Phil and Susan, thank you very much. Thank you, team, over here. And there will be no further business come before this committee. The meeting is hereby adjourned, and we are going to take a 10-minute break. Is that right? Yes. Okay. 10-minute break, and then we'll come back and start with academic and student success. to reconvene. And Regent McCall, you still with us?
Yeah, I see him on the face.
He's in there.
Wake up, John.
Okay.
Is this better?
It's just his wallpaper, I think.
Who else asking? There you are. Am I better?
You're always better. Beth.
Well, they can't hear me.
Yeah, Beth. Well,
Good morning,
Okay.
everyone,
Hear me better.
and welcome to our meeting. As Chair of the Academic and Student Success Committee meeting, I would now like to call the Academic and Student Success Committee meeting of the University of Houston Board of Regents to order. As a quick reminder, please speak clearly when presenting or making remarks so your comments can be recorded correctly. We have 6 items that will be presented today before the committee. 5 action items for the committee and the board's consideration, and 1 item is for information only. Following the presentations of the various action items, I will ask the committee if there are any questions and call for a vote. Once all action items have been presented and approved, if appropriate, I'll make a motion to place these items on board's consent docket agenda for final board approval. I would like to introduce our first item requiring committee approval, the minutes of the Academic and Student Success Committee held on November 20th, 2022. Does anyone have any corrections to these minutes? So do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Second. So we have a motion. Any opposed? The minutes from the November 30, 2022 Academic and Student Success Committee meetings are hereby approved. The first agenda item for the committee's consideration and approval today is item C. Approval of a Bachelor of Science in Integrated Studies, University of Houston. Dr. Diane Z. Chase, Senior Vice Chancellor of the Academic and Affairs and Provost. Will you please introduce this item?
Thank you. Pleased to be here with you today.
this is your maiden voyage, correct?
This is my what?
Maiden
Yes,
voyage.
it's my maiden voyage, yes, yes.
Right.
I thought I was hearing maiden something, what? Yes,
Well,
thank
welcome.
you. The University of Houston requests approval to establish a Bachelor of Science in Integrated Studies. This is a proposed 120 semester credit hour degree that can be completed within 4 years. It is a program that's intended not only for new students, but for continuing students. And it is important that rather than just getting one major, what students can do is pick 2 or 3 areas of concentration. So it's really very flexible and quite appealing, and should allow students to complete more quickly without excess hours. This is an area where there are jobs, so there are jobs for students who graduate with an interdisciplinary degree, and there are data that suggests that there will be more jobs that they can apply for. The degrees of this kind are available elsewhere in the system and in the state, and they're actually very popular with students. We ask your approval, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Dr. Chase. Does anyone have any further questions? If not, may I hear a motion to approve this item as presented?
So moved.
Thank you. Opposed? None. This item is hereby approved. The next item listed on your agenda today is item D, approval of a Bachelor of Science in Atmospheric Science, University of Houston. Dr. Chase, will you please introduce this item?
Thank you. The University of Houston requests approval to establish a Bachelor of Science in Atmospheric Science. This is also a proposed 120 credit hour degree that can be completed in 4 years. The program will prepare students such that they can actually meet the position requirements to become a meteorologist with the National Weather Service and the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. But there are jobs actually in private industry to do weather forecasting, for which they also would be prepared. There are 3 institutions in Texas that do have this degree already: Texas A&M in College Station, Texas A&M in Corpus Christi, and the University of the Incarnate Word in San Antonio. But in this case, this program, we believe, would be a great fit for the University of Houston because we already do have master's and doctoral degrees in this area. This will help us build that pipeline. So we seek your approval. If there are any questions.
Thank you, Dr. Chase. I do have a comment here. The previous program that you presented, Integrated Studies, is offered by so many universities. Can you please look at what other programs are offered at other universities that we don't offer, so that we can try to be more competitive with other universities? Because I saw that other program is offered by about 8 or 9 universities, so we were lagging behind. Maybe you can look at some other programs in different colleges to see what programs we should consider in different colleges.
Happy to.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So if there are no questions, may I hear a motion for this degree program? Thank you.
Second.
None opposed? This item is hereby approved. The next item listed on your agenda is item D. Oh, this. The next item listed on your agenda today is item E, approval of the merger of Cullen College of Engineering and College of Technology, University of Houston. And Dr. Chase, will you please introduce this item?
Thank you. The University of Houston requests the approval to merge 2 colleges, as indicated, the College of Engineering and the College of Technology. And I do want to acknowledge that the 2 deans of those current colleges are here. If you wouldn't just stand, please, or aligned with the goals of the University of Houston strategic plan, we're always looking, and you don't have to stay standing if you don't want to, it's okay, good. Sorry, I just wanted them to know that you were here. That we're always looking for additional opportunities to make our programs better for our students and for our faculty. And we believe this merger is going to do just that and also position us well in the community. A review of top 100 universities nationally reveals that the majority of them combine programs like these into a single college. We expect that merged college will provide very specific kinds of opportunities. So for example, while there is currently research, interdisciplinary research across colleges at the University of Houston, we believe it'll be far easier to do that when one college. In terms of students, it will provide them multiple pathways to a degree from a College of Engineering, which will be incredibly beneficial. So we also do believe that we will see enrollment growth. In addition, we believe this will provide increased awareness of the College of Engineering at the university. By combining these degrees, we have greater scope and size, and will actually be the 3rd largest College of Engineering within the state. The merger is not something that was taken lightly. There was an extensive period of consultation, review, planning. A series of task forces formed that took place more than a year. If approved, the merger would be effective March 1, 2023. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Dr. Chase. Does anyone have any further questions?
Regent Agrawal?
Yes, sir.
I do. I know last time we spoke, I'm just curious if just some of the students' concerns have been addressed already, or has there been any additional town halls just to let the students know of, not necessarily the merger, but I know some of the classes moving to Sugar Land and just making sure that they're aware and we're assisting them in any way possible, just making that transition easier. I know a lot of that's been happening right now, but as more and more as we move in to kind of, getting them over there, have we addressed all their concerns already from a student's perspective?
So the next phase, following the March 1, will be to do the full implementation, which includes posting of an FAQ for questions and a variety of communications to students and other groups. So I really feel confident that we'll be able to address their concerns, or at least answer their concerns.
So let me address some of it too, since Provost is
Yes.
brand new, so, and I've been in the middle of all of this. Yes, there were a lot of feedback opportunities, surveys with the students. And so there are two issues you have raised, and both are very important. One is, what about your students' concerns and all, and I can address that. And the other one is move to Sugar Land. Move to Sugar Land started even before ever any talk of merger was there. And that was done with the idea of giving the technology program the very best opportunity with the industry that is there in Sugar Land and the connections and the support that is there. So that was the purpose. But let's come back to students. So here are some of the concerns that have been resolved. The more operational things will get resolved as time comes for implementations. One of them, what happens to the entry requirement? Because entrance is different in College of Technology and it's different in College of Engineering. But the entrance is not determined by college. Entrance is determined, or what the qualification for entry is determined by programs. So good example is CLASS, College of Liberal Arts and Social Sciences, that has so many different departments, and the entry requirement ranges from 2.5 to over 3.0 there too. So nothing changes, but so when the next semester students enter, every student would be entering under the Cullen College of Engineering. And then they will go to whichever program they want. So all the programs in technology are being retained, not a single one is being ended. And all of those who want to go toward engineering will go engineering. But they can take courses in both of the colleges. And then when they graduate, their degree is from Cullen College of Engineering, and they can take courses here and there as well. The other concern was what happens to my tuition, because the tuition is different in engineering and it's different in technology. The tuition is not determined by the college. Again, it is determined by the CIP code, the code that is a state's code. So there were programs in technology that were not in that CIP code, so they had lower tuition, not because they were in technology, simply because they were in a different CIP code. So no tuition is changing for anybody from that sense. The other one was what happens to career fairs. Actually, students are very happy, and the many that I have interacted with, because earlier technology students could only go to technology career fair, and the engineering students went to engineering career fair. And technology students everywhere else, in all other universities, they have access to all of the engineering career fair because it's always done one. So they now have that opportunity to be able to go and do the career fairs, so one merged college. In terms of their diploma, there was one concern. What happens, I entered in College of Technology, and now what happens to my diploma? Well, when they are graduating this May, since you all are voting, I hope that you approve today. So this is middle of the semester. Everybody graduating in May will graduate from College of Technology or College of Engineering, no change in their diploma. But coming summer or fall, any student who is currently enrolled will have a choice of graduating whether under College of Technology or New Cullen College of Engineering, whichever one they choose. But any student who is entering in fall, they will be graduating under Cullen College of Engineering. So we've looked at everything that could impact them, and we've tried to address all of that. So that's for undergraduates. For graduate students, they will have now so many more opportunities in terms of their research opportunities in professors' labs, and in terms of faculty and PhD students really working with other PhD students. So there's just a lot of opportunities that we didn't have before. one other point which is really important, and that was one motivation, important motivation, and that was that the universities that combine everybody, they are together in a one big faculty strength. So our strength now becomes 200 faculty in the Cullen College of Engineering. We have so much of federal funding out there, from infrastructure bill, from hydrogen, carbon, all of those billions of dollars, and we just felt our faculty, when they applied, their strength wasn't visible because it was separate units. As a one unit, there's a different skill sets that come together, and there is a bigger platform for us to do bigger things and compete in a much stronger way. So I think from every point of view, we have tried to see how to make both sides stronger. And if there was anything that was of concern, we just paused and we said, okay, let's see how to make it a win-win for everybody. And that's why the two deans are here. They have been working, their faculty, their chairs, they have been engaged in these committees for the past 1 year, just trying to address all of those things. So we hope we are doing everything right. So far, I'm not hearing those kinds of concerns, so that's on one side. Sugar Land, everything will move to Sugar Land except those programs where we need to keep headquarters here. And now the leadership of the two colleges combined can see how they serve and feel responsible and do really offer programs at 3 locations. That's the only college we have that is now all 3 locations of University of Houston. Here, the University of Houston, and then UH at Sugar Land and UH at Katy. So you will have engineering programs in all of these locations, and you'll have technology programs in all of these locations. So it's an additive from our point of view. But we'll keep on hearing concerns and keep on resolving them because we want to do the right thing for our core mission. Our core mission are students.
Thank you for addressing that, Chancellor. And yeah, I do. I appreciate that, right? Because at the end of the day, our students are what matter, and I think everyone here knows that. So it's great that we're doing that, and I agree. I think having them across the whole city of Houston and Katy and all these different locations just gives greater visibility to the students coming out of high school that what the University of Houston is doing. So thank you for addressing their concerns.
I have additional comment on this. I went to engineering college in India. I graduated in 1967. There was no college which had a technology and engineering. They were always engineering and technology together. IITs that you have heard about, Indian Institute of Technology, which is well known, everybody respects them. They were engineering college and college of technology. So when Chancellor called me about combining College of Technology and engineering, I felt really good. This was unique here when I saw it, and India had based engineering on the basis of British system. So that's really old tradition. So I felt really good about it. I thought I will mention that now. So if somebody has any other questions, otherwise, may I have a motion to approve this item as presented?
Second.
Thank you. Any opposed? This item, if not, this item is hereby approved. The next item listed on your agenda today is item F, approval of mission and vision statements, U.S. system, University of Houston, University of Houston Clear Lake, and University of Houston Victoria. Dr. Chase, will you please introduce this item?
Thank you. We're requesting your approval of these mission and vision statements for each of the entities described. This is a requirement of SAC-COC, our accreditor, that every 2 years the mission statements are reviewed and then approved. The board approved UH Downtown's mission and vision statements last year at this meeting in February. So we ask your approval. They are included in your board book.
Thank you, Dr. Chase. Does anyone have any further questions? If not, may I hear a motion to approve this item as presented?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? None. So this item is hereby approved. The next item listed on your agenda today is item G, approval of faculty post tenure review policies. University of Houston Clear Lake, University of Houston Downtown. Dr. Chase, will you please introduce this item?
Thank you. Review and approval is being requested for University of Houston Clear Lake and University of Houston Downtown. These faculty post-tenure review policies are in your materials. They will go along with the annual review of faculty that currently takes place. This is only for tenured faculty, not for non-tenured faculty. They provide a set of procedures that are really clear and uniform and consistent across the academic university, and we believe that will be a tremendous benefit. The board approved the University of Houston's policy in December 2022, and UH Victoria will submit their policy for the next board meeting in May.
Thank you, Dr. Chase. Does anyone have any further questions for Dr. Chase? If not, may I hear a motion to approve this item as presented?
So moved.
Is there a second? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, none. This item is hereby approved. Thank you. The item listed on your agenda today is item H, recap of the outcomes of the University of Houston Victoria 2016 through 2021 strategic plan. Dr. Chase, will you please introduce this item?
Thank you. I would like President Bob Glenn to provide the results of the strategic plan.
Thank you. What I'm going to present to you today is the result of the work of a university-wide task force composed of faculty, staff, and students who were charged with reviewing the past strategic plan and formulating our next strategic plan. The one that we are reviewing here was first passed in 2016 and was intended to run out in 2021. We are required, as you know, by our, okay, Dr. Glenn, you swear, there it goes, finally it works. As you know, we're required by the Southern Association of Colleges and Schools Commission on Colleges to provide a regular review of our mission statements and our strategic plans, and that's what this is in relation to. Our mission statement, you've already taken care of. We have a number of standing goals and core values: excellence, diversity, continuous improvement, responsiveness, academic freedom, civility, collaboration, integrity. Those undoubtedly will remain the same. Then we have a number of standing goals, and I'm just going to run through these very quickly. The Reader's Digest version of my report is we said we would do it, and then we went out and did it. And now I seem to be advancing through goals before I've even talked about them, which is remarkable. There we go. Back. All right. Goal number 1 was teaching and learning. UHV will provide high-quality instruction, learning support, and all the degree programs. You have in front of you a trifold, which I placed out during the break, and that contains all of this information, and I provided that so you could keep it with you, as I know you always will, to be able to refer to quickly. I will point out a couple of things. The strongest one is that we went from 3 colleges to 4 colleges. We are in the process of refocusing our academic inventory and moving to a much stronger showing in the sciences. We will be coming back in the future with programs in engineering, aviation, and other areas that we think will serve our area. We've also maintained all of our accreditations, but added ABET accreditation, which is the standard in the sciences and computer science. And so we will be beginning to bring forward programs in engineering now that we have the appropriate accreditation. Goal number 2 is in research, scholarly activities, and external grant funding. I'm pleased to report that we are making progress in that area and bringing in more. We are a teaching institution, so we do not do anything that approaches what the main campus is, but we are engaging faculty who do their own research. I would point out that our provost is doing research as well, trying to set the good example there. Goal number 3 is community engagement and partnerships. This is an area that I think that we've done very well with. Our Center for Regional Collaboration works with all the counties in our region in developing collaborations and partnerships, not only between the university and those counties, but between counties as well. So a good example of that is the Rural Broadband Initiative that they've been very active in trying to help our regional partners. Goal number 4 is enrollment management and student services, and we've done well in that. We've increased our transfer student population. We've joined the Houston GPS program, and we have enhanced software from EAB that allows us to do better in advising students, in addition to a $2.5 million grant from Title III for support of students in this area. Goal number 5 was financial and administrative support services. We heard earlier from our system auditor that all of our systems are in good shape. We take very seriously our responsibility to be good stewards of state and system funds, and we've made good progress in all these areas, all the while maintaining our position as one of the lowest cost institutions in the state. Currently, we're second from the bottom in terms of tuition cost. Goal number 6 relates to university advancement and development, and this is an area that I think we've done very well in. You'll note that we had non-individual giving has increased by about 285%. We've gone from, in 2016, having about $600,000 a year in giving to about $2.5 million in giving. So we've still got lots of room to grow, and we're still working on that. And I would be remiss if I did not mention the Johnson Foundation that's been extremely generous to the university, particularly in our sciences area and health area. Goal number 7 is planning, assessment, and accountability. And we are, I think, exceeding our expectation there in terms of making sure all of our programs plan, assess, and then evaluate all of our programs. Goal 8 was the growth and program expansion. I do want to note that we are moving along in a lot of ways. I hope that in maybe about another year, year and a half, we'll be able to host a meeting of this group in Victoria. I don't want to do it before then because we're completing a number of projects, not the least of which is the Ben Wilson Corridor, where we're taking a 5-lane road and reducing it down to 3 lanes, adding a bell tower, and creating a new grand entrance to the campus. So we want to be able to share that to you. We also have 3 new buildings over the last 4 years, a new student union and library, a new residence hall, and a new science and technology building. So we feel good about those. We have expanded dual credit offerings, and we are expanding our MOUs with all the area and regional community colleges. We've seen good growth at UH Katy, and we're moving in that direction. So that's pretty much where we are. We appreciate this opportunity. We just need to have the record reflect that the board said okie dokie.
Dr. Lane, thank you very much, sir. How did you do this 285% increase? I think people need to know, what did you do so that to make it 3 times the giving of the individuals, so that other people can do the same thing?
Sure. No, that was very systematic work by our former Vice President for University Advancement, who's since been pilfered by another institution that will go unnamed, but that I turn my head and spit every time their name is mentioned. But Jesse Peisers did an exceptional job of cultivating giving. He did a number of things, such as our annual Tuesday Day of Giving program, where he went out very aggressively into the community. So he just did a terrific job, and we're now trying to recover from his move to another institution. We've got a very good young professional, Amber Countess, in his place now, and I feel very confident about that.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. This item was presented for information only.
Can I just?
Yeah, oh, sorry.
It's okay. President Glenn, just, would you mind just telling the board about, in this context, about your enrollment challenges that you have had in last 3 semesters? And what are you doing about it so that we can have the context?
And I think this is on the Chancellor's mind because she sat next to me in the Senate and the House where we talked about this extensively. But as you know, UHV is kind of a hybrid institution. We're different from the other 3 in that we're both a rural face-to-face 4-year institution and an urban upper division only and graduate institution in Katy, which are separated by a 2-hour distance. So we have some natural challenges in that regard, but we did, over the course of the pandemic, experience quite a bit of problems. In Victoria, our enrollment was negatively impacted for a couple of reasons. One is that we're a rural institution. If you look at every single rural institution in the state of Texas, and then look across the Southeast, every single rural institution took a significant hit in enrollment. We were no exception. Part of that was because the predominant message during the pandemic was stay at home. Stay at home, don't go out. And so our cohort of San Antonio and Houston students went down by 60%. They chose instead to go to community colleges closer to home, and that had a negative impact on us. We are now beginning to trend in a positive fashion after about 4 semesters of a downturn. We're down the spring semester about 3% over where we were last year, which was down over the year previous to that. But our numbers for the fall, and especially in terms of new students, are very positive. We're up in all categories: new students, transfers, and returning students. So that was a problem. In Katy, our problem is that we are entirely transfer students. We have no students who start and finish at UHV Katy. And as you may be aware, across the state of Texas, as well as throughout the United States, community college enrollments were down anywhere from 10 to 20%. And HCC and Lone Star both noted considerable drops in enrollment, and then that's just passed along to us. So again, we've struggled. We've reorganized that area. We have a much more intentional program. We are putting into place policies and procedures to hold our recruiters accountable for the work that they are doing. We are trying to make sure that students who are applying to us are applying because they want to come to us. There was a point in time, remarkably, where English teachers would have their students apply to UHV for the process of writing essays for admission. So we would have about a 10% rate of return on all those applications, which we've now eliminated, and we're now much more focused. We're getting people who are able to, and now we're able to get back into. The other problem that we faced at both campuses is community colleges and high schools closed their doors. You could not go and do face-to-face recruitment. We tried to make a shift to online recruitment, and that's simply not as effective. So when we don't have the kind of reputation that the main campus does, we have to work a little bit harder. We're now able to achieve that by getting back in the schools.
Thank you. I just wanted to make sure that if you see in progress card and a decline of 20% enrollment, that in light of this and in light of that, you can get everything in context.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Glenn. I have another idea that I had mentioned in the board meeting 4 or 5 years ago. Those students who get rejected on their application from the main campus, if we can refer those applications to Clear Lake and downtown and Victoria, then maybe we will get more students. But I was told at that time we may not be able to do it. So maybe, Donna, can we look at, is there a way to send those applications?
Actually, Regent Dorgwald, that is being done. There is a process now in place where if a student is not able to get into the main campus, we will be given their information. There is a bit of a lag, though, between the time that student applies and the time we're able to get in touch with them, and so the student may have made other choices that we're not able to be competitive. But we do have, and I do think both Clear Lake and downtown as well as UHV are working with the main campus in a very positive way.
All right, thank you very much. I guess.
It was a
we
good
need to
idea then,
promote
it's
that.
still a good idea.
Yeah, we need to make sure that people know about it, that we are doing it.
Yes, sir. I think that may also well be a part of the Houston GPS, where we're working very intentionally to make sure people are aware of the pathways they can take, whether it's through a community college and then to one of the system campuses or to start at any of the four that exist. But I think we're beginning to make some improvement in that area.
All right, sir, thank you very much. And this item was presented for information only, and no committee action is required. This concludes the presentations and approval of our 5 action items today. May I hear a motion to place 5 action items unanimously approved by the committee on the Board of Regents consent docket agenda? Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Thank you very much.
Second.
Do I hear a second? Thank you very much. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, none? This item has been unanimously approved by the committee and will be placed on the Board of Regents consent docket agenda for the final board approval at the board meeting held later today, February 23rd, 2023, as follows. Item number 1, approval of a Bachelor's of Science in Integrated Studies in University of Houston. 2, approval of a Bachelor of Science in Atmospheric Science, University of Houston. Approval of the merger of the Cullen College of Engineering and College of Technology, University of Houston. Approval of mission and vision statements, U.S. system, University of Houston. University of Houston Clear Lake and University of Houston Victoria. 5, the approval of faculty post tenure review policies, University of Houston Clear Lake and University of Houston Downtown. If there are no questions, this concludes all of the items that are listed on the agenda for action. Section 2, the executive session is the next item listed on your agenda. It should be noted that an executive session will not be held today. Does anyone have any further questions or comments? If not, there being no further business to come before this committee, this meeting is hereby adjourned. Thank you very much.
Chairman has arrived.
Good timing, Chairman.
Do you think that happened accidentally? I wanted you to be in total charge. If I was here, you know.
Yeah, I know.
We are at Facilities and Construction.
Oh, we are.
Mr. Brooks.
I knew that I had to be here to watch over Mr. Brooks. I knew you were good.
I'm glad it worked out perfectly this way.
No, actually, we need.
We have a very short agenda actually today, so I assume we want to move forward?
Yeah, actually, you needed him today.
Huh?
You needed,
It's very short.
we needed him for the quota, didn't we? 1, 2, 3. Come on, man.
All right, well, good afternoon, or good morning, actually, and welcome to our meeting. As Chair of the Facilities, Construction, and Master Planning Committee of the University of Houston System Board of Regents, I'd like to call this meeting to order. We have one item, and one item only, listed on your agenda today, and the one item is for information only. I'd now like to introduce the first item requiring committee approval, the minutes from the Facility, Construction, and Master Planning Committee held on November 30th, 2022. Does anyone have any corrections to those minutes? Do I hear a motion to approve these minutes as distributed?
So moved.
All right, and there's the second. And all in favor? Opposed? The minutes from the November 30th, 2022 Facilities, Construction, and Master Planning Committee meetings are hereby approved. The first and only item to be presented for the committee is item C, University of Houston System Capital Project Update. Mr. Bartlett, Senior Vice Chancellor for Administration and Finance, will you please introduce this one and only item today?
Yes, sir. Thank you. Thank you very much. I'd like to turn it over to David Oliver to present the capital projects update to the committee.
Thank you, Raymond. As Regent Brooks noted, we have one item, and it is an update. And I know I am between you and lunch, so I will be brief and to the point. You will have the capital projects normal briefing booklet that we provide each quarter for you to review. They have that if they've passed it out, or they will pass it out shortly. So for our update this quarter, I wanted to highlight two completions that we've had over the last quarter that I think are very noteworthy, as well as touch base on some of the other projects that we have in queue. So if you see here, you can easily see what we've got going on here at the downtown. For those of you that may have noticed, when you came in, we have a brand new Student Wellness and Success Center. We just did the ribbon cutting on that here just recently, and I'll highlight some of the details of that. We also have a project here on the one main building as well for some envelope repairs, and as well as a renovation from some CCAP money, and then a welcome center build out on the fourth floor for the fourth floor of the Girard building. Downtown, we have, at the University of Houston, we have a new Hilton, and I'll highlight that in a moment as well. It is coming to substantial completion. We have a new football development center, football operations. We have an innovation hub. We have a new building for the hobby school, as well as a renovation for the TMC Old Pharmacy facility down on the TMC campus. At Clear Lake, we have a Bayou building renovation project for, again, CCAP funds. And then down at UH Victoria, we have a health and wellness building, as well as some work at the Northwest Campus, Phase 2, and then some North building renovation, again, from CCAP funds.
I have a question, David, on the...
Yes, sir.
On the Hilton renovation, did the other parts of the complex get, was there any updating or renovating?
There was, and I will jump to it since you have questions. I'll go ahead and go to the Hilton real quick and come back to the student. For Hilton, the scope of the work included, of course, the new guest tower that you see as you come in on the campus, along with the new entry. But we also renovated the existing guest tower. So it had some mandatory renovations that were required by the Hilton as part of the refresh of the structure. So that was also included in the project. And then also we touched and renovated the lobby. There's a Cougar Grounds coffee shop in there, which we also dealt with, as well as completely renovated the Center for Student Success, which is on the first floor. So that was the complete scope. As you can see here, our budget was at $30 million. Total of about, total square footage we touched was considerable, about 64,000 square feet. There's 8 floors on the Hilton building. We did take substantial completion of the facility in January. We're still doing some punch list work on the structure. You can see here the architect engineer was Kirksey and our contractor was DPR. You can see some time-lapse photos here, which I think are interesting, between the time we've kind of started all the way up till, I think, in February on the bottom right. And then, of course, today you can see on the bottom right, and you also see how it looks today. So a complete structure.
Thank you. I apologize for getting ahead of you.
Oh, no problem.
I missed a page.
I think to Regent Moore's question, I think one of the coolest things on the renovation to the existing 84 rooms that have been there since 1975, when the hotel was first built, all the photographs are basically pictures of Conrad Hilton, Baron Hilton, Eric Hilton, the Hilton family. People walk in the restaurant sometimes and don't even know who the people are. In the rooms, the same.
Pictures of Paris Hilton and...
Yeah, so no. Now, if you go into the rooms, there's pictures of Elvin Hayes and our cheerleaders and Shasta. So it truly now feels like a University of Houston hotel, not just a Hilton hotel that could have been anywhere. I mean, and in the new wing, David may get to this, there's also pictures of the Ezekiel Cullen building. I mean, it feels like our hotel now instead of just a generic Hilton hotel.
That's great.
So it not only is updated, it also feels like home. Yeah.
I don't know if I can say it much better, but yes, he's correct. We have, the renovation has been very transformational to the structure. And you can see here some pictures on the top left, a room picture. The top right is the new entry and lobby area. And then on the bottom left, you can see pictures of the structure, as I mentioned a moment ago. So it is a very modern structure in contrast to the older structure. Many people have noted that. As far as the intent for us was to build the new structure as part of kind of our new front door, because it does face University Drive, and as a result, it hides the older building in behind. So you get a very modern-looking Hilton hotel.
The old one's ugly.
And I think Regent Brooks did mention this effectively doubles the number of rooms that the facility is capable of and maximizes the other spaces in the conference spaces in the structure by having more rooms available. So a great project all the way around. I'll jump backwards here for the student and health wellness structure. So as I mentioned a moment ago, this one we took ownership, substantial completion back in December. As you can see, you should have seen it coming in. It's big and very bright and open and lots of open glass. It is a multi-story recreation center. Includes all sorts of fitness, state-of-the-art equipment. It has an indoor running track, which is really, really cool if you haven't been over there. 3-court gymnasium, multi-purpose studios, and of course staff offices for the rec facility. Total budget was at $38.6 million. We had about 74,000 square feet, 3 floors. And again, as I mentioned, we took substantial completion in December. A&E for this was the Smith Group. Our contractor was J.T. Vaughn. Like I said, for those of you who have been over, it is a beautiful state-of-the-art rec and wellness center. You can see some of the photos here, lots of glass. The glass faces back towards the highway. If you look at the front, many people have commented that you can see the UHD kind of colors from the highway, so it has a lot of visibility. Of course, down at the bottom you can see some of the final product, as well as the ribbon cutting ceremonies and other events that we had over here as part of the opening of the facility. So we did have Regent McCall attend for our ribbon cutting. You can see a picture of him there. So Hilton we sort of touched on already. I did want to sort of highlight some other projects. Those were ones that came to successful fruition here recently. We are currently getting started on the design on several projects. You can see here Bayou Building renovation. Again, I mentioned earlier, this is some CCAP money, so we're going to be working in the Bayou Building. For those of you who are familiar with it, it's an extremely large building down in Clear Lake, in dire need of some updating in many areas. We, of course, mentioned also that we are building a 4th floor for the Gerard Street building, which will be their new welcome center. Then we also have a lot of renovations here in the one main building, as well as we're completing out some envelope repairs on the building as well. In Victoria, their Northwest Campus, Phase 2, is getting underway, the designing of that, as well as building out the North Building shell space renovations for academic use. On the University of Houston campus, the Football Development Center, we're just getting started on the design of that project. We have an exciting new innovation hub, which will include a makerspace there in the main campus. I mentioned earlier, we also have an academic building for our hobby school, which we will be building on the site of the old O'Quinn Library, which will be torn down. And then also we are in the process of designing the TMC Old Pharmacy renovation that's been empty for some time.
And if I may, hello. Okay. If I may, I just want to add a little context to at the University of Houston, the Football Ops Center. That has not been brought to the board at this time. We are still working through various iterations of size of project and you know what it might look like and where it's going to be positioned. We have not brought that to the board at this time. We feel we still have some work to do before we bring it to you, and our plan is to bring it to you in May. But there's still a lot of internal conversation ongoing with regards to that project.
I think that's all I have, if there's any questions.
Any questions for Mr. Oliver?
Great report.
Nice update, beautiful new things happening,
love
continue happening on the
I love
campus.
new buildings.
It's always fun
It
to
shows
have
where
ribbon
we're
cuttings.
going, yeah.
Is the city behaving?
Is the city behaving? There's a
On
lot of
all
different
the things that are
conversations
going on internally with roads and.
I think that for the city, and of course, I think you're referring to the Cullen Boulevard work, if I were
Right.
guessing. They are, of course, that is a joint venture with the city and the county to benefit the University of Houston. So it's a great project, and we are excited about the end product. Now, the process of getting there has been painful, to say the least. We have worked very closely with the county. The county is actually the ones managing the project to ensure that it minimizes the interruptions, maintains pedestrian flow, and hopefully gets us complete by the July scheduled date. So we are monitoring very closely and encouraging them at every step of the way.
Encouraging them.
Great. Okay, any other questions? Thank you, Mr. Oliver. Mr. Bartlett, this item was presented for information only and requires no action by the committee. And if there are no other questions, this does conclude all the items listed on the agenda for action today. Section 2, the executive session, is next on the agenda, and it should be noted for the record that an executive session will not be held. Last chance for comments or questions. Going once, going twice. Committee is done. Perfect timing.
Just talking about the weather and how beautiful it is and how fortunate we are in February to have global warming and weather like this.
How about the global warming in Chicago today?
I know it. It's crazy. There's more snow than there's ever been in Minnesota and the whole northern part of the United States. It's crazy. It's like a divide line. So there's no global warming there, only in Texas.
Expecting 20 inches or something and got like
All right, where are we, Mr. Chairman? We're done?
We're done with facilities, yes, sir.
So it means we adjourn
I think we're adjourned, aren't we?
for
we
lunch.
officially adjourned.
Okay.
Lunch, and lunch is going to be in the Wellness Center.
Oh, in the wellness center. So it's going to be a wellness.
Very well.
They're
Ms.
going
Lunch.
to expect you to get on the treadmill.
All right, thank you very much for that report, sir. Thank all of you this morning's hard work. And we're going to break for lunch, and thank you, all of you out here.